visually. Plus, if the parents entered some changes on their address or phone numbers, the form would be highlighted in yellow, so they knew what were the changes for the returning students. So that was a big time saver for the clerks. The other module was the Home Access Center. This is what parents see. Parents can log in now and get a lot more information about their student. This is what it looks like when they initially log in. If you have students in the district, I'm sure if you have a hack account, this is what you see. You see a calendar of events that tells you what's going on at the campus. Then you get to see attendance. Now there's an attendance view that allows you to go check and see if your students are actually in class or what kind of activities they've been in school. It has a colored legend that tells you what activity they've been in or what kind of absence they've had. So this is pretty important, especially for the secondary campuses. The next thing is the classes. This is also very important. You see that there's assignments in here, when it was assigned, when it's due, what kind of an assignment. This is what parents can see all the time. So if you ask your child, is your homework done, and they say yes, then you can come in here and check if it is done or if they've turned it in or if they're behind. The next thing is grades. This is very similar to the report card that the students come home with. One of the nice things about this system is that we're able to email the report card if the district decides to. That's something that we'll look into probably maybe next year. Teacher gradebook. This was by far the biggest challenge that we had. And reason for it too is like I said before, we had not had a change in 12 years. The gradebook that we had prior was very much customized to our needs. The vendor had done a great deal of customization, so everybody was used to that. But if you look at it in the big picture, they were an isolated module where the information wasn't real time. Everything that you're seeing here so far is integrated into eSchool Plus. Anytime that a teacher posts a grade, an absence, it's loaded immediately to the Home Access Center. Now, one of the challenges that we have is that, or we had, I think, if you see the little oval in the middle of the top middle of the blue line, this is what we expect to see in a teacher gradebook. We want to see that little green oval. If we see a pie chart, that means that the teacher has not verified grades, has not loaded grades, and has not published grades. Publishing is very important, meaning that it's published for you to see. This is how, when we run failure reports for eligibility for UIL, if this information is not on this gradebook, then all those reports will be incorrect. So there was some rumblings about the failure reports aren't right, but in reality, if we just reintroduced, retrained that, this was very important, and I think everybody's on board now.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so some of the things that you're talking about now, I've actually been hearing about for quite some time. Pretty much every time I went to a football game and teachers found out I was there, they lined up to tell me that how hard this thing is and what a hard time they're having putting their grades in. I had teachers tell me about times where they had to put their grades in time and time and time and time and time again, 3, 4, 5 times, and they couldn't get them to go in, and all sorts of issues like that.
At the beginning, I think it was just part of training, and yes, there might have been some slowness. Once everybody is on the system, you really can't tell on the performance on the system. So we were on the back end trying to monitor, every user that was on and trying to control the speed and performance of the system. We did have the innovative teachers that are at the campuses that helped us train the teachers, and they're out there at the campus and available to them whenever they need help. If you'll notice on my next slide, we have where we're offering continuous training. We've gone to faculty meetings. We've offered face-to-face training. We've opened more lab time here in our computer lab. Visited the PLC meetings to see, okay, how can we help? How can we, go out there and reach out and see how we can help them with the problems? Every time that we've gone, there've been issues that pretty much 90% are user error. And those rumblings were at the beginning of the year. If a teacher cannot enter grades right now, that means our attendance is not correct. And I just don't believe that.
And that was another thing, too. I heard from one person that the only way that they can take attendance now is on a desktop or on a laptop. Mm-hmm. And if those go down, because used to, they could take it on their phones even, mm-hmm. And that it can't be done on their phones now.
On their phones, it cannot. That is correct. It's not responsive to the phone. It's only responsive to an iPad, and then some of the laptops, the higher-end Chromebooks, but it is not responsive to a phone at this time. That is correct.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
We have this new software, but did we get new servers to upload these programs into?
We did acquire hardware. It was by the recommendation of the vendor. That's what happened. Once we acquired the software, they gave us specifications as to what kind of hardware we needed.
Before you rolled it out, did you test it on a limited basis?
Yes, we did. You can only, we tested it up until, we were blue in the face, and right. We took it out to some of the campuses to help us navigate through the screens and look at their processes and see if it's working for them. But I think the real test really is when everybody is pounding on the system.
Well, I mean, the system should be able to handle when all the teachers are on there trying to load
right.
their grades. I mean,
if not,
we need to upgrade those servers.
And now it does. I mean, we have not received calls like we were at the beginning of the implementation. Our calls are minimal. Like I said, and when we go out to visit, we want to meet with the faculty and say, hey, what is your problem with entering grades, and we're accessible to them. And unfortunately, the attendance is low.
Is there a hotline for the teachers to call in when they have problems with this system?
We have a phone support team that's available 8 to 5, and it's on 41010. They can call, and they've been trained and instructed on how to run the gradebook and a lot of other processes in the new system.
Oh, one more question. How do we back up our system? Is that on an incremental, or is it on a...
For several systems, we do incrementals every 15 minutes, depending on the criticalness of the system. Like payroll, it's every 15 minutes. We do the student information system every 15 minutes. Okay. And then we do a full system backup at night.
And where are our backups maintained? Away from that system, I hope.
Yes, they're away from. Yes, they're away from the building. They are in the telecom office out of this facility.
I'm sorry. Have we ever tested our backup system and gone through the whole process to make sure that we can back up our system within? Have we gone through that exercise?
Yes, sir. We did it with the transferee system that we previously had. Since we're quite new with this one, we haven't done that yet, but we do have a disaster recovery center at Region 19. We have all the equipment that's needed to run a student report cards, transcripts, or payroll. Okay. We're required by the state to have a disaster recovery systems for the mission critical systems.
Right. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I just had a question. Given what Ms. Woodruff said as how teachers have complained about its user friendliness, how have parents reacted? The parents have been wonderful. They've logged into Hack. They did have, questions at the beginning, but now, like I said, we call them salad days. They're light days with,
a sprinkle of different kinds of questions that come up, but parents have handled that very well. We have quite a few parents that are using the home access.
And can they actually access it from their phones? Or does it also have to be from a desktop or laptop?
Yes, unfortunately, at this time they do. eSchool Plus is migrating to a responsive design system. Responsive design means no matter what device you're in, it'll adjust to that. So they are working on that feature.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I have one more question, because you reminded me, as a grandparent, I had to register 3 of my grandkids in there. And that was at the beginning of the semester, right?
Yes, sir.
It was online. Can you look at all those, it was a long list of things that they wanted me to fill out. And then they had the ones that were asterisk, the ones that said, these are the ones that require. Mm-hmm. So I just kept everything else and just filled out the required. Could you look at those other ones and make sure, because me as a parent, I just didn't want to go through each one of them if they weren't critical.
Relevant. Mm-hmm.
Relevant. So can we look at those and...
Sure. And what we did with that form, the enrollment online form, is that we took the registration packet that everyone was used to, right, and we created a standard form for all the schools. The associate superintendents helped us, go over what's important, what we could take out. So that was pretty much standardized. And for the next year, for this coming year, certainly we can make adjustments to what worked, what didn't work, and we are thinking about condensing that form as well.
Yeah, me as a parent, I would appreciate it. It was streamlined to where I could do it in not a few minutes, but at least not, it was too much to read through, and then right, I finally realized, hey, just hit the ones that are relevant, the ones that are required, and skip the rest.
And for the first time, for now, that's all that was required. If you're done entering your right, demographic information, next year you just need to take your proof of address and your child's immunization records to the school.
Well, I'm just thinking of the other parents that sure, come on board afterwards.
Yes,
all
sir.
Right.
We certainly will.
Ms. Woodruff had a good question. Was the evaluation committee aware of the fact that parents would be unable to access their students' information via a mobile device?
I don't think we, during that time, we were thinking about the mobile device responsiveness. Back then, if you believe it, it's almost 3 years ago, that didn't exist. Now it's more prevalent because we're all on our phones now, we're all on our iPads now. Now you expect it from all the vendors, all the providers to have the responsive design.
I thought the previous system had the capacity to be accessed with a mobile device.
The teachers, the teacher gradebook did, but remember that was a whole separate module that was customized for us.
But this one can't. The teachers can't.
At this point, they can log into the web page. There is what we call a Horizon link, and they can click on there and they can log into the gradebook. The reason that's so tight right now is because of security. If a teacher goes out to Best Buy, and we have found this, we see the open enrollment form on the actual screen at Best Buy. We've seen it for other school districts. So we're trying to really hard and try to lock that down so that you can only go into the gradebook, do your work, and then come back out.
Just a quick question. Do parents get notifications on their mobile devices at least telling them like your son or daughter's failing a class or they didn't turn in a homework assignment or something like that?
The alerts? The alerts, they do. The alerts, you get them by phone call or text. They have that ability. Okay. And then I know with other systems in other districts, the issue that teachers have always faced is, so I set a date, like looking at your slide that's up here, middle ages is due on 11/6/2017. If a teacher doesn't add the grades in that day, does an alert go to the student, to the parent saying, your son or daughter didn't turn in an assignment? No, not at this time. Okay, good, because that's a good thing, because sometimes the teacher doesn't have a chance to put the grades in that day. Right. And notifications would go out to parents saying, like, your kid didn't turn in something, when it's just the teacher just hasn't uploaded the grades. And it's usually during, progress report or report card, time is when, it's even more crucial that they keep up with that grade book. Thank you.
Just, I could certainly thank you all for all the hard work and getting this program rolled out and recognize the challenges, and challenges not only for our teachers and our administrators, but also for our parents as well, especially for the first time they've had to do this. The only comment is I understand about the difficulty of transitioning to a new software application. However, you know, I would echo President Woodruff's comments that we're still getting comments from teachers, and administrators are being very diplomatic about what they're saying. And at a recent school visit, I actually was observing a PLC, and 2 or 3 of the teachers lost their grades that they were working on while we were there. And I don't know if it was Dr. Kennedy or Ms. Chacon, but they can verify the school and when it happened. But that was either late October, early November. So I guess my comment would be, is there any way for us to develop a real simple survey instrument? So instead of waiting for them to come to let us know that there's a problem, or it's becoming the new norm to deal with the problem, just to live with it by asking, you know, our teachers, our schools, are they having any challenges?
Most definitely, we can create a survey that would go out to just teachers to see if they're still having challenges. A couple of weeks ago, we had a data quality conference where all representatives from the campuses had to come and validate some data that we turned into the state. We had 100% attendance, and I would say maybe 95% of them were principals and the actual clerks that are using the system. And I did ask them, every one of them, how are you doing with the system? How's the gradebook? How are your teachers feeling? And I got an overwhelming response that they're getting there. It's a lot better. The more you use it, the more comfortable you become with it.
I have one more question. I had one concern brought up about evidently when a teacher changes something in her grade book or his grade book, that change stays in for the next semester too, even though it kind of has some residual effects some way or another. Anyway, the concern was that when the administration runs their report at the end of the year to put all the grades together and make sure that, you know, everything was averaged out right or whatever, that the reports aren't going to match what the teachers thought they put in, or something like that. I don't know. Now
the only, like I had mentioned a little earlier, the only thing is if the grades or the information is not posted on the teacher yearbook, if you run reports out of there, they're not going to be accurate until they post the grades. But if you give me contact names and numbers, we'd be glad to reach out to those schools and just confirm that, you know, they're not having any more problems.
Thank you. I know they'll appreciate that, because, and maybe that's a good reason to do this too, because if you maybe just ask them what problems are you experiencing, you could kind of see where they're all coming from, if that was part of a survey.
Yes, ma'am.
I mean, then you could see where the areas are, and it wouldn't be so.
And also next week, we meet with the DEIC, and we're also going to go through the teacher gradebook live so that we can share with them, do a Q&A and just have a one-to-one with them and see how they're doing. I believe it's mostly teachers that are in that committee.
I'm wondering too, now that you say maybe parents need to be asked about their feelings towards the new system too, so that we can see how it's working for them too.
Sure, we can run a survey for that too.
Ms. Woodruff, we have excuse me, good evening.
There you are.
We have I'm like, it's me right here. We have a parent advisory committee also coming up, and so we would gladly, you know, talk about the student information system and get their input on that meeting as well. So we'll have a venue for that.
That'd be great. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so as we were just talking about, we continue to do face-to-face training, open lab sessions. We've asked to be in some of the faculty meetings, the PLC meetings. We have videos online, documentation pages on the website. We've done the trainer model where we've trained the technology teachers at the campus, as well as we had an assistant principal meeting a few weeks back, and we had those super user principals that wanted to take on the role of training the other principals. And that was a great success. They were able to connect on their levels and do what ifs and scenarios, and it was a good training for them. And then of course we also have the help desk support. So again, you know, perfect practice makes perfect. You know, the more you use it, the more, even for us as in technology, the more we talk to the users about their experience and how we can help them, you know, the better off we are learning. And so it's a big learning curve for us as well. And change is uncomfortable. We did get quite a few calls as to why we changed it, you know, so they just did not want to change. And then of course we had the 3 nuances with the gradebook and registration. And then also we've adjusted our hardware. Our hardware has been stable. We monitor it every day. We have somebody monitoring. We have screens with charts that are, you know, taking the heart level of the system. So now we're almost at the final stretch. So if you noticed, we went live 2017 March with the pre-K campuses. We had the online enrollment, gradebook, and master scheduling. During this time, we're fine-tuning the system. We're, you know, working with the vendor to fix bugs. We're looking at transcripts very carefully because that, you know, that's coming up as well. And then we did the big state reporting to PEMS, and that's a big obstacle because it's millions of records that we submit to the state. So that was a success. And then now we're at the end of December. So what we're doing for the rest of the year is we're gonna end the semester, and then we start building for semester 2. So we have eSchool Plus will be here on site in January to help us kick off the new year, the new semester first, and then the new year. Because now we have to get ready again for online enrollment. We have to get ready for master scheduling. And then we have a new feature, which is the course registration, class registration. That's also going to be new this spring for the students. They can actually register online with courses on their own. They can sit with the counselor at the school, or they can sit with parents. So we're starting all that up. And then summer school, we have summer school that we also need to get ready for. So we're doing this in the first couple of months of the year, and we should, you know, be ready by the time all this is taken into place. And then June is when we close the year and we open up a new year. It's not really hitting a button on and off. There's a lot of processes that go behind closing a year and opening a year. And that concludes my presentation. Any more questions?
Just one last question. What's the commitment to this program? For how long are we committed to it?
We're committed for 5 years. It's a contract for 5 years, and after 5 years, it's up to us to extend.
Okay. Thank you.
And you know, we can certainly make modifications and adjustments as well. You heard our development team that's done, you know, a great job with the apps. You know, we can talk to them as well.
I have a comment. Yesterday I asked my wife, and I was standing about as far as Cruz was when I asked her about the gradebook. And she commented that it is a work in progress, and she said so far so good for her.
Oh, good.
So keep up the good work. And I know also registering the kids was an Olympic event, but I guess not, like you said, it should be a lot easier. So,
thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I do thank you. I know it's a big task. I've been before in my other career. I know how hard it is to implement a transition like this. And I just went and that's why I was asking questions,
Sure.
just to make sure that.
So you've been in my shoes.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam President, members of the board, if it's okay with the trustees, may we have the Bond Oversight Committee move up to the second slot and present, get them back home to their families a little sooner this evening. You all ready?
You told me the one.
Somehow I find it hard to believe, but. No.
Good evening, Madam President and members of the board. Thank you for having us this evening, and I appreciate you allowing us to go first, as many of our members are family oriented, and we want to make sure that we're mindful of the time that they already volunteered to us. I'd like to introduce to you the co-chair, Mr. Louie Villalobos, at this time.
Madam President, members of the board, Dr. De La Torre, thank you for giving us the opportunity to kind of keep you abreast of the bond project. Let me say, one of the most important things that the district has to accomplish in any bond project is two words that begin with T: trust and transparency. And I think the information that we received, the process that this district has followed since the beginning, and the leadership of the committee has afforded the district the opportunity to do that, build trust with the community, and to show the transparency of where the money is being spent and how it's being spent. Needless to say, every bond issue does have its speed bumps, but so far, this bond project and the administration of this bond project and the actions of the bond committee, the bond oversight committee, has really gone to a great extent to iron out those speed bumps. All due to the leadership, and I think I'm the warm-up back for our chair. I want to introduce our chair, Mr. Frank Hernandez, who has assisted the bond committee in that goal.
Good evening, President Woodruff, esteemed board, and Dr. De La Torre. Thank you for allowing us to present to you as a Bond Oversight Committee this year's 2017 annual report. If I may, at this time, before we get into the presentation, I'd like to acknowledge the committee members that are here present tonight. If BOC Oversight Committee, if we could have members, we all could stand up for us, please. Before I get into the presentation, I would like to take a few minutes to thank Dr. De La Torre and his staff, Mr. O'Neill, Mr. Arango, Ms. Ann Miller, Ms. Leeper, to name a few, along with VLK staff. They've been really, really tremendous in providing us the information, the data that, as a committee, we've asked for, beyond words, because the data is somewhat technical. Ms. Leeper, with her financial, and VLK with the presentations, have been able to calm some of the questions and some of the concerns that are being brought up by such a diverse group of a bond oversight committee that you all have put together, what we have put together as back in 2016 when the bond oversight committee was created. Before we get into that, I'd like to give you the mission that the bond oversight committee is according to the charter, tasked with. I like to think that we are somewhat ambassadors as well, because we're here to encourage the transparency, the accountability, and the public support and confidence. So there is quite a bit of confidence within the committee with where we're going with this bond oversight and the project itself. I think, as Mr. Villalobos mentioned, it has been truly, truly well managed at all levels within the district and the project management themselves. As we get into the presentation, where do I go, Abby? Through the bond, through the charter, here are 4 areas of what we are really responsible for. The within the budget task, obviously, is extremely important for us and one of our main focus areas, along with delivering a project on time, to work in conjunction with the budget. Obviously, they offset each other. All else being equal, we would definitely like to stay local as much as possible. I know there's been some concerns here within the area with other districts, but we won't talk about them. And along those lines, the quality of the project is obviously very, very important. Here recently, as we were preparing for this presentation, there was some concerns from board members, committee members, I should say, on the quality of the infrastructure and the project itself within its implementation and completion, specifically with athletic enhancements, that they were concerned with the materials and the lifespan and the warranties of the infrastructure that have been put into place by the project itself. I will take these next coming meetings to address some of those concerns. I know that I spoke with Mr. Arango about that, and we will make sure that that is on our next agenda so that we can get the information that's being, the concerns, to answer the concerns from the committee members. Yeah.
And to give you an example of how the board and the Ysleta Independent School District works together, or not the board, I'm sorry, the BOC, is that many times we have an open door policy. Any concerns, any comments, anything that the BOC has questions about, we have an open door policy. They can call me at any time. They can call Mr. O'Neill at any time, to which we go at great lengths, hopefully, to answer their questions, to reassure them that we're doing something about it, much like we would do with you as well. And we take these concerns very seriously. A lot of our projects are ongoing efforts. There's many details, and so we try to stay on top of those details for those BOC members. Oftentimes, it's just a matter of misinformation or delay of information, and we all know that construction projects can have some unpredictables, but we've been very fortunate in the bond projects that we have been, we've avoided any kind of huge catastrophe. So I'm really pleased to say that within the BOC and the Ysleta District, we've maintained levels of open communication, constant communication, and I think that's why we've been successful. Just as Mr. Frank Hernandez just said, even just up until the minute, right before the presentation on Friday, on Saturday, those comments are taken very seriously. And we always have responses, and if we don't, we find out what that response is and make sure we're accountable to. We always think that they are our voice out in the community.
As we get into the project, some of the things that we're working on is 13 local firms have been hired, 12 local within the professions of as you'll see on the slide, the survey, engineering, civil and testing. The 10 local firms have been hired within the architectural phases 1 and 2. As you can see, they're stated there on your slide for you. 2 of the projects are teamed with regional firms as well. Local firms and contractors, we have 9 local firms that have been hired. Again, 2 projects with national firms that were added to that because there was just no local firm available for the other 2. And you'll see it's a Hellas Construction, which did the athletic enhancement with at all the fields. Let me get to my notes real quick on this one, please. This is where we're very excited to report that we currently have 13 bid-in, budget, completed, or on-schedule projects. Something that very, very exciting for us to report to you all at this time. As you can see, some of the projects that are stated are the athletic enhancements again, the New Ballard Middle School, the Thomas Manor School. I'm sorry. Yes. Cafetoriums throughout the district. I think we have, what, 3 currently? 2. You'll see some of the completed projects here for the year 2017. The Fine Arts at Ysleta Middle School, Parkland Middle School. I'll get to the shortly. Some more completed projects at Rio Bravo and some of the athletic enhancements, again, that were brought up as a concern. During the past 2 years, we've had a total of 5 committee meetings, 2 presentations, and 2 site visits. The site visits took us throughout all the construction projects, and we were able to access some of the facilities and see firsthand what was going on within the projects themselves, where our money was being allocated to, and making sure that, again, the projects are delivered with quality and on time and on budget. A couple more additional projects that are stated here. The Tierra del Sol project and the Desert Air. We have here under construction. Let me get to my notes. The Bel Air Middle School, which is a signature project again. The Thomas Manor, the Eastwood High School, another signature project for the district. The Mission Valley project itself, and along again those two projects, the cafetoriums that are in progress as we speak. Currently, there are 3 projects that are in the design phase. The Ysleta High School, the gymnasium to the Bel Air campus, and the early college renovation at Parkland High School. At this time, there's a board member that has asked to speak to you all again. Sorry. I'm sorry, Park member. The committee is comprised again of a very diverse grouping, and Mr. Moreno comes with an extensive background, and at this moment, I'll let him introduce himself and provide you his background and his input.
Good evening. I promised Frank that I'd be sincere, quick, and quiet, so. Dr. La Torre, Board of Trustees, everybody here. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Manny Moreno. I'm a retired aerospace and defense electrical engineer and engineering manager. You know, I've been extremely fortunate, and I want to thank you for letting me be part of this bond oversight committee from the very beginning. You know, even though, you know, to be a member to improve our school district, our community, and in my case, my grandkids, they can't ask for more than that. In my other life, I handle a lot of complex and very expensive projects. But I can tell you that I've learned a tremendous amount on this public project here. I recently got appointed and sworn in as the part of the City of El Paso Capital Improvement Advisory Committee. So I plan to take some of the stuff that I've learned here and apply it to that. What I've liked about this project is that, you know, I've seen firsthand the project maturing from conception to implementation. You know, I've seen the dollars being converted to brick, mortar, technology, and what I know will be improved learning. When everything is said and done, we must take care of our investment. I'm a big believer in that. You know, my kids, and Mr. Bustillo knows them, they're in their 40s now, and I raised them with the axiom that automobiles are the worst investments you can make. That's why you have to take care of them. Well, infrastructure, technology, and our kids are some of the best, if not the best investments that we can make. That's why we have to take care of them also. When this project is successfully completed, we must take care of our investment through proactive maintenance, not only physical, but also mental, okay? Let's continue paying attention to the details and holding people accountable in the areas of cost, quality, schedule, and safety. That'll be the difference between us being great and being good. Again, in my other life, I gave many presentations to institutions of higher learning on topics of technology, engineering, and things like that. And the question that was asked of me the most was, what is the difference between a great engineer and a good engineer? My answer was 15 seconds. That's how long it takes to pay attention to details. And the difference between great and average is 30 seconds. All right? So when everything is said and done, let there be no doubt that YISD has set the bar for investments and venture of this type in the city of El Paso, if not the state of Texas. Okay? I think my tenure is over this month. I think it is. If it is, thank you very much. If it isn't, I'll see you at the next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Great.
Closing, I would like to take just a little more time to make a quick statement. There's a great sense of pride within the committee in the accomplishments of, as Mr. Moreno stated, when we hear comments that it's the best project that the best well-managed project that they've worked with, when they compare it to other cities, other districts, to tell us that it's being managed better than they've ever seen. I think these are accolades that should not be taken lightly. These are a tribute again to Dr. De La Torre and his vision, the staff and the board to get us to where we're at, and again, the pride that we as a committee take as we lay the groundwork for our future, our kids, is just, myself again, I thank you all for the opportunity, and my tenure is up as well, and if I'm back, I will see you at that time as well. From the Bond Oversight Committee, thank you for your time, and happy holidays to all.
I think we have
We'll take some questions.
Yeah, maybe some questions and some comments. Go ahead, Mr. Ramirez.
Frank, and by the way, Manny, you need to add humble to that list, okay? Great, thank you so much for the kind words. First off, to the Bond Oversight Committee, thank you so much for your leadership and your commitment and your willingness and patience at times with us, and taking on this task and sharing with the community what it is that we are doing and how we're trying to accomplish it. And then I think the other part that Manny brought up at the end goal is the service and the facilities we provide to our students and their families and our teachers. And I haven't had the pleasure of being at Desert Air a couple of weeks ago for the ribbon cutting. Just amazing that whole event. And so, again, thank you so much for all that you've done on behalf of the community, and thank you for the kind words. It just makes a huge difference when everybody's involved and everybody's aware of what's going on.
Thank you, and thank you all.
Yes, Mr. Rosales.
It's on. I don't know where you guys are going, but you're not going anywhere. Well, I want to just very quickly say this. When you all came forward and we were able to look at who you were, we were blessed. We were blessed in many, many ways. And as you've done your work and you run your obstacles and what have you, I can't tell you how I feel about the fact that we allowed democracy in this country to prevail. Here you have some very quality individuals that have stepped forward and taken a major, major task and have come through. And for you to say that you ain't leaving, buddy. There's more work ahead of this road. But I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart with the sincerity that you guys have approached each project and the end results of how we're beginning to see things developed and continue to develop. So when I see you people, the quality that we have here, and I see some of these other districts bringing some high-profile individuals, more power to them. But I'll tell you what, we have the moxie, the intelligence, the experience that other people do not have. And I appreciate all your efforts and your time for this time that you've taken. And now we're into the second phase. And whenever we have to do what we got to do, Dr. La Torre, I'm willing to renominate some of these people, if not all of them. Okay? Thank you, Frank.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
Manny, Louie, the gentleman back there, thank you very much.
I wanted to say also, when we first started on this journey, for me, this was just like a dream. It was just like we toured the schools and we saw the need and we prayed, we thought, we planned, we tried, and now that it's come true, it's just like a beautiful dream to see it. And I just appreciate so much your help with this dream. I think that without your help and without your connection to our community, that we lose something there. And it's just a great thing that we have this committee, and also that we have this connection with our community. And just thank you so much for your leadership, and also to the community members for their time and their energy and their effort to make this into the committee that it is. Thank you so much.
Truly appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If I could just add one last thing. I truly hope that you all come back also again. And if you decide to come back or not, because I know the amount of work it takes to be in it, just know that the work that you've done is going to impact generations of children. And you have left a legacy, as well as everybody else in the district that's put their efforts into the bond, that is going to have an impact for so many students and so many families. And I cannot begin to thank you enough for being the community members that continuously support our district and get the word out to everybody about the good work that's being done here. Because it's one thing to hear from Dr. De La Torre, his staff, or us, but when community members like you all go out into your communities and say, this is a good project, we're doing good work, that leaves a lasting impact on the community. And so I thank you for everything. And every time you see these new buildings and new updates, remember that you all have left that legacy for your children and for future children.
Thank you so much.
And I just want to say the true winners are our kids. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for all you do.
Thank you all again, and have a great evening.
Thank you, Frank. It's good to see you all. Where's Dr. Vasquez, our Director of Pupil and Parent Services? Come on up. I'm interested in seeing how it's going, but it really is a good program. I haven't downloaded it.
Good evening, President Woodruff, Dr. De La Torre, members of the board, and thank you for making me a doctor, Dr. De La Torre, but I'm not quite the doctor, but I appreciate that.
We'll talk about the tuition later.
Sounds good.
At the moment, it's deferred.
We're here to talk to you about anonymous alerts, and here my co-presenter. We'll have him introduce himself.
Good evening, Madam President, board members, Dr. De La Torre. I'm Victor Perez. I am currently with the Guidance and Counseling Department. I am the compliance coordinator for them.
We're excited to talk to you today about a new system that we just put into place here in the district with regard to student safety. It's called Anonymous Alerts. And what this is, it's an app-based program that allows students to anonymously report bullying or any other negative activities on campus, such as cyberbullying, weapons on campus, drug activity, gang activity. It allows students to report this anonymously either through their phone or via computer. Community members are also able to do this by by downloading the app and logging on. What this does, the beauty of this program is it allows for one-way and two-way communication. The way it works is when a student reports an incident on their app, it'll go directly to their school administration. School administration will receive a text message that has the report on there, and at that point, the administration begins investigating the allegations. This app is in response to David's Law, which was enacted this past legislative session, which deals with bullying and cyberbullying. One of the provisions of the law was that each district have in place a system to anonymously report bullying. So this was our response to that. Some of the things that we've reminded our administrators of with regard to the law and this app is that by law now, administrators have to notify the parents of the victim or the target within 3 days of the incident report. So our administrators have been notified that whenever they do receive a report, the clock's ticking, and they do have 3 business days to respond and let the parents know. Now, the investigation may still be in progress. They might not have wrapped up their investigation, but they still need to let parents of the victim know. As far as the parents of the alleged bully, there's no time frame. The law just says within a reasonable time. And we just stress that the 3 days starts when they receive the notification, not necessarily when they've wrapped up the investigation. We have I'm not sure if y'all want to see, we have a short video on it, or would y'all like to see a short demonstrational video? So I'm going to go ahead and.
You guys like? I'd like to.
Tell a little bit about
It won't take any longer than the movie we saw last week on.
Within our incident management system, school officials are empowered to receive incident reports in real time and have an anonymous two-way dialogue with the submitter. This helps school officials to uncover more information about the incident. All information is completely encrypted and private with our proprietary data security wall. Other powerful management tools include doing pie chart analytics, taking notes, forwarding incidents to other outside third parties like law enforcement, and more. Anonymous alerts is built on a robust infrastructure incorporating top-level security measures, protocols, government-level encryption. All messages are 100% encrypted, utilizing industry-level best practices in our proprietary data security vault. Our self-owned and managed cloud ensures the highest level of security. Now, let's see how the app works. After downloading the app on the App Store or Google Play Store, open and log in with your credentials. Click on View Incident Details to see submitted incident reports, and then click one from the list to access the full details.
And this is actually what the from the administrator's side.
Retrieve crucial recipient information that displays who received the report, as well as their title and building. Scrolling down further, administrators will see message details, including a date and timestamp, incident type, the full message, and the confirmation code. On the bottom, administrators have the power to reply to the submitter, forward the report to up to 5 others at a time, and take notes to keep track of the investigation. When replying back to the report submitter, all messages remain encrypted, private, and 100% anonymous. This allows both the submitter and receiver to confidentially communicate about sensitive issues related to the incident without fear of retribution by their peers. Next, we have pie charts based on incident type and location that display incident report data. Here's how it looks for incident types. The slices represent each incident type broken down into a percentage, illustrating the frequency in which that type was reported. Clicking on a slice reveals the quantity and exact percentage of that incident type reported. And that's it. Thanks for watching and for choosing anonymous alerts to make your campus a safer place.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes,
How do the kids,
Welcome to the
I'm sorry, how do the kids, so they don't have to have a user number or anything like that, or how does that
No,
part
so
work?
once they download the app, the username and the password are both Ysleta YISD. And once they log on to they're into our system. And the way it works is when they're submitting a report, it'll give you a pull-down menu of all the schools in our district, and they would send the message only to their school. And that school administration, they would all receive that report. So for elementary schools, for example, typically it's the assistant principal who handles discipline and these types of issues. Unless they're not on campus, then the principal would handle it. In the case of, say, a high school where there's multiple assistant principals, if they do include a name, we've asked them to go ahead and go like a lot of them go with the alpha. Whoever's in charge of that alpha, they'll be the one that handles this investigation, and the principal would be overseeing everything and ensure that incidents are being investigated.
I have a question. If you have an incident that is very high priority, what's the turnaround for somebody to act on it? I mean, if it goes to the local school, wouldn't it be is there a button there that you can say that whoever's reporting can say, let's press a red button, say, hey, this is high priority. You need to
That's exactly right, and there is a button that would say that high priority, and they'll click on that. I've been kind of, and Victor will be able to speak more to this, but I've been kind of spot checking, and our administrators have been doing a really good job of investigating. In looking at one at the high school level, there was somebody reporting that they felt that somebody had suicidal tendencies, and it's time stamped, so you can see where the administrators acted on it immediately. In the notes section, they documented the steps they took, and then even including the counselor and so forth. They contacted parents, so they did a great job, and that's kind of what our role is here, more so Victor, is to ensure that these are being reported. So let me go a step further on this. When students report on the app, it automatically enables that two-way communication. But when they go online and report it, they have the option of enabling the two-way communication or not. In some cases, they won't enable that. I've asked administrators to encourage them to enable that. That way, if we need more information, we can ask them for it. But in the case, let's say there was an incident where there was a real serious report about violence on campus or a suicide outcry, and they don't leave that two-way communication, what we can do is we can contact anonymous alerts, and they can unencrypt that information and give that to us immediately. That way we can contact the person who reported.
Wouldn't we want the district to be notified if it's a high priority incident? I mean, it would be a little bit of a lag time before, if it's in a local school, and then by the time it gets up to district.
I think most of the principals and assistant principals understand that anything that could result in the district being on the top fold of the El Paso Times must be reported immediately.
I had a question real quick. Why is it that the parents of a target get notified within 3 days, but the parents of a bully is only within a reasonable time frame? And what is a reasonable time frame?
Yeah.
Because if I was a parent of somebody who was accused of being bullying, I'd like to know immediately so I can either address my son or daughter, or I can actually confront the accusation and say this is inaccurate.
Exactly. I believe the reason why it was the law is written that way is they want the victim to, so we can start seeking that support, and oftentimes they don't. From what we're hearing is that they don't get notified, or they don't know what's going on. They don't see those warning signs. So then they don't want to share them with them at home. So this, I guess, allows the family to be notified within a short time frame. As far as, and again, this is just our interpretation of the law, is that the reasonable time frame, sometimes investigations can take, it can vary. The amount of time it takes to complete an investigation may vary. So I guess they give us a little bit of that.
I guess I understand that the investigation might take time, but don't you think as a parent, wouldn't you want to know if your son's being investigated or your daughters are being investigated, whether that investigation has been completed or not? Yeah. I personally would like to know that they're under investigation instead of waiting until it's been done, and then I have to react to an investigation that's already been completed.
Exactly. I can tell you from as a former school administrator, whenever anybody came to my office, parents are notified, just to let them know, hey, they were in the office today. I don't want them to find out from the student that they were in the office. They should hear it from me. And I think the vast majority of our administrators follow the same practice. But this is just in legal terms, the amount of time that we have. Just to kind of go back to the emergency that you had expressed earlier. We were offered different options when putting this app together. They gave us different things that we can put together, and two of the buttons that we've chosen, one of them is a 911 button. So if a student is reporting an emergency, there's a 911 button there they can just press, and also it'll say at least a couple of times on the app itself or online, if this is an emergency, please call 911. Another button that we've put into place here is students have access, Onetouch access to the National Suicide Hotline. So I know in talking to our administrators, that was a concern of theirs, because they felt, what if something happens, we're on Christmas break or on summer vacation? So they would have access to that, and they can, with one push of one button, they can contact the suicide hotline as well. So here to tell you a little bit more about the flow of this is Victor Perez.
So again, this is a recapitulation of the workflow. Once the incident is received, the administrators in charge, in this case in elementary, would be the principal or the assistant principal that would follow up and follow through with the investigation or the report. In terms of the secondary, it would be all of the administrative team principal, including assistant principals, receive the message. And at that point, the assistant principal in charge of the segment of the alpha, if a name is given in the report, takes charge and leads the investigation at that point. Again, the messages can be forwarded. Case in point, for example, we have the 9th graders at Eastwood Middle School, and they received an alert at Eastwood High School. So we went ahead and forwarded that message to Eastwood Middle School to be able to take care of that. And so just highlighting the ability to forward messages as appropriate. In this case, also, we're talking about if it's a suicide outcry, that the counselor is necessary to mediate, is needed to mediate any kind of situation and take a supportive role in that investigation. We asked the principals and the administrators, the APs, to follow the 3-day window, to observe the 3-day window when it comes to contacting the parents of the target, and also making sure that they do contact the aggressor's parents within a reasonable amount of time, and also to make sure that they close out, to make the necessary notations on the application, because there is a note section for administrators to be able to have that electronic paper trail of what's been done relative to that case, and then to also close out once it is appropriate. And then finally, I have started the practice of reviewing the submissions on every Friday. This is the first Friday. And so those reports that are close to the 3-day window or have surpassed the bit of 3-day window, I gently remind the principals that they need to go ahead and follow up on the reporting.
Well, I'm sure you all are very capable. Is there going to be a review process, a quality assurance, quality improvement type process to look at the decision making and just to make sure that we're doing things the way we're supposed to? Is legal going to look at this? I mean, I guess what happens after it's all closed out?
In terms of the actual report?
Yeah, you said that the issues will be monitored at the district level, ensure the incidents are investigated and closed. So the incident's been closed. What happens after that?
Well, if an incident has been closed, then one would surmise that all the parties have been investigated. The administration has taken the appropriate steps relative to discipline and relative to counseling if necessary.
Okay, I understand what you're saying. I'm not sure I totally agree with it. You use the word surmise. I have a problem with that. Who's going to look at that? Okay, did the associates look at it afterwards to make sure that we're being consistent? Does somebody from HR, does Dr. Latorre look at them to make sure we're being consistent? Because I don't want to hear that, we've got a couple of learning communities, 6 learning communities are just, they're getting it done, and then I've got one learning community that's being inconsistent and that sort of thing. And and also too, how do we learn from this? When we're talking about this with our administrators and that sort of thing. So I guess that's the direction, the question I'm asking.
And that's a great point. I know I've spot checked. I haven't looked at every single one, but some of the ones that have been closed, just to kind of see how they've addressed the issues, and just to make sure that they have the notes. And we've had, parents have been contacted and so forth. And to this point, they have. Have I checked every single one? No, but maybe that's probably a good practice and a good suggestion, so we can review these.
I think Mr. Cohn has something to add.
If I could add, Mr. Ramirez, as far as the SAFE conference, remember when you guys joined us on Saturday and Bobby had a session on bullying incidents and so forth and documentation? We do receive those. So the bullying incident is taken care of. Once it's taken care of, the principal or assistant principal does email us and usually CCs Bobby and myself or whichever associates it's relative to. So we do receive them, we do look at them, and depending on the documentation, we then follow through if we feel there's a need to. But we do get a copy of the bullying incidents.
Okay.
And relative to the board, what you'll start seeing is the purpose of this communique is to make you aware of a anonymous alert that we received indicating, and then I'll walk you through the entire process and what we did and how we believe we've either resolved it or not resolved it, like you get relative to handguns on campus or any other thing that happens out there that's going to attract media or attract parent groups. So they know that they're responsible for making me aware of those anonymous alerts that are, first of all, accurate, right, that truly exist. And then they know that I always push that out to you so that you don't find out in the grocery store.
Is this subject to open records?
Good question.
I'm sorry? I'm sorry?
Subject to open records?
I think it can be, I think parts of it can be subject to open records.
You don't think so?
But not anything that would disclose the identity of the students.
May I add to that? Anytime there's a minor involved, it is not open to subject to open records, and the only individual that has the ability to obtain a copy of that investigative report is the parent of the student in question that's being bullied or the victim.
I guess I have two questions. First of all, how many students do we currently have signed up that are using the anonymous alert? Is there a way to track that? Or parents and students?
There probably is. I couldn't give you an accurate number, but I can find that out for you and get that to you.
Okay. And then the second one is more, I guess, for Dr. Torre. Is there a way to make it, I guess, a district policy that both the parents of the person that's being targeted and the bully would get notified within 3 days? Simply because I just think that both parties should be made aware of the parents right away. And the last thing we want is if that student is actually bullying one student, there's a good chance they might be bullying other students. And if we inform their parents right away, maybe at least we can curtail some of that other bullying. Even if another student hasn't reported the incident, at least if the parent's aware of it, they can maybe start curtailing some of that. So I don't think it would be that harmful to make it a district policy that both parties be informed within 3 days.
That's entirely up to you.
And if
District policies belong to the board.
Oh, okay.
If I may,
get that on there?
if I may, your district policy has a whole lot of provisions about reporting bullying and reacting to bullying, and the duty to promptly take action to promptly prevent bullying in the interim while an investigation is going on. But the law didn't require notifying the parents of the bully, the alleged bully, within that prompt time. But that doesn't mean, as you say, it doesn't mean that you all can't impose that. So there are lots of provisions, and this policy is before you this Wednesday. It's going to be on under TASB Update 109. We adopted the recommended TASB language. You could have, for example, though, you could either change the language in the policy itself, the proposed TASB language, or you could have a regulation about how quickly it should be done.
And if I may interject, our regulation does say within 24 hours, both the parents of the victim and the bully should be notified. It's in our regulation.
It already says it.
Well, and that is district policy already, what we should be doing. So
It's
we're
part of our-
above the
yes.
3 days already. Beyond
Yes.
Okay, awesome.
It's in district
It's an
regulation.
admin,
It's not a
admin
board
regulation.
policy. So the board policy will be notify the victim's parents within 3 days. The regulation says notify everybody within 24 hours. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
And so it's just,
So what's beyond? Is the board policy above the regular
the
regulation?
board
That's
policy
correctly.
is above and puts it a reasonable time, and so the regulation is saying 24 hours is a reasonable time. That's the way I would construe it. But there could be some circumstances in which a reasonable time is a different time. I don't know.
Just to add a little clarification, the process of it is legal policy, then local policy, then regulation. And what local and regulation allow us to do is to make our guidelines even stricter than that is what is recommended by the state. And that's why we've implemented it in regulation.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Dr. Latorre? Also, too, on the, once we conclude at the, once the case has been closed out, and I think it's more of an administrative thing. I don't think we need to do a policy, is that we formalize the process, that once it gets closed out, what happens to it? If the associates are going to look at it, then that's fine. If you're going to look at it, that's fine. If Mr. Vasquez and his team are going to look at it, that's fine. But
Jimmy, do you think that we could get on a quarterly or semester basis, a pie chart indicating how many incidents we've been presented with for that period of time, and that would allow me to make the board aware of how many were met at a satisfactory level and how many left somebody dissatisfied.
Absolutely, we can work on that. And I believe, as a matter of fact, Dr. Kennedy and Mr. Perez have already been working on a system for reporting out to the associates.
And may I say that your policy also, as it's being presented to you on Wednesday, says that once there's been an investigation, there's going to be a report, and that the report gets sent, the principal prepares the report, and it gets sent to the superintendent or the superintendent's designee. So it is required to flow up to the central office, to the superintendent's designee, who can then give you what you need.
Sounds like a really good program. I just can't wait to see how well it works, because, you know, that's going to make the real difference when it comes to our kids. So, and I'm also curious whether the kids are going to, how they're going to accept it, whether they're going to use it or not. Because, I mean, I think that some research shows that bullies and the bullied don't really report. They suffer in silence or whatever. So it'd be interesting.
What the folks out at Anonymous Alerts told us was that initially you're going to see lots of reports coming in, and I think we can attest to that. Some pranks, honestly, and some legitimate concerns. But what they said is thereafter, after the initial, the novelty of it, exactly, then we'll see maybe about 1 or 2 per week at the school level. But that 1 or 2 hopefully will be, those legitimate ones that we can really make a difference. If we could just share with you briefly, we also have the rollout plan that we enacted.
So there was a rollout on the leadership, for the leadership on November 15th, relative to the application and how it's to be used. November 17th, the counselors were also trained on it. Also November 17th, the principal's staff, training staff, or rather the staff was trained as well. And these are the teachers on campus. November 29th and 30th, APs were trained. And then the week of November 27th, there was a whole process for launching the app. Letters were sent home. We had promotional posters on the campus. The training videos were made available to the students. And also, we asked the campuses to hype up the launch of the application through their student councils, having different activities on campus. And then also, and then finally, the app went live on December 1st.
I want to thank Patricia Ayala and her team, as well as Gloria Chavez and her team. They did a great job of promoting this. It was all over social media. We made the news on a couple of stations. As a matter of fact, when I was talking to the folks at Anonymous Alerts, they were saying that based on some of the news stories that we're seeing, a couple of neighboring districts also went on board with Anonymous Alerts. I don't know if we're going to get any of that money back, but so it has made an impact so far, and we're hoping that it'll continue to make an impact in the district in the future.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We have one very quick one, and then you may want to take a little break.
Okay.
I'll have Ms. Bobby Russell come forward and give you just a quick overview and presentation of her department and their role and responsibility in the organization.
Madam President, Dr. De La Torre, Board of Trustees, it's with great pleasure that I present to you what I think is the best department in the district this evening. This is just a picture of our group and our mission statement, and our whole goal is to provide our service in a responsive and positive manner. manner and to make sure that everyone that comes into our office feels like they are important and that we get to the bottom of what they would like for us to get done. So a little overview of our department is 85% of the budget that you approve on a yearly basis comes from human capital management, which is our personnel and their benefits. And our job is to recruit, train, hire, administer all personnel in the district, whether it be substitutes, custodians, associate superintendents, teachers, nurses, librarians, you name it. Our job is to ensure that we recruit the most highly qualified personnel. We do criminal background checks and reference checks on every individual that comes to work for the district. We always want to make sure that anyone that's going to work for the district, regardless of their position, is a positive role model for all students. And then one of the final things that we do is we ensure that all employee salaries are competitive with other school districts. And right now, as you can see, YISD has the top salary for incoming teachers. Training is another essential job function of those of us that work in human resources. And this is just a quick list of a majority of the trainings that we do provide. We don't only provide training for teachers, we also provide them for students as well. Most recently, I had the ability to work with the golf team at Eastwood High School and present a social media safety presentation to them. And they were very receptive, and we went over the different aspects of social media and how we can keep them safe and away from bullying. We also talk about employee handbooks, sexual harassment, Title IX, you name it, and we present on it to make sure that our employees are well-versed in all of our policies. Our highlights from this year is we were able to maintain our staffing guideline, but not negatively impact any employee's job. We created an HR Twitter page so that we can get out there and get the best applicants to apply for our open positions. We've now implemented a mandatory substitute teacher training. So any substitute teacher that's going to work for our district has to go through a full day training. That training entails providing them safety information. It entails giving them lesson plans in the event that it's an emergency and a teacher doesn't leave lesson plans, a go-to book so that they know what to do. If there's an emergency in the classroom, it gives them numbers of those individuals that they can contact. And then we provided each substitute a reference handbook and each campus with a reference handbook for each of the teachers so that they know what should be in that handbook in the event that there will be a substitute. Our staffing ratio went from 23 to 23.25. We increased the early notification incentive for contract employees. We hired 76 teachers in elementary, 111 in secondary, 17 campus-based administrators in elementary, and 14 campus-based administrators in the secondary setting. So these are some exciting things that we have to come. We're going to provide ethics training for all YISD employees. The state recommends it just for teachers, but we think it's very important that we give it to all individuals in our district, whether they be substitutes, teachers, nurses, you name it, because we want all of our employees to know the ethical standards of the state to ensure that they comply with them and to ensure the safety and security of all of our students. Our substitute teacher salaries are going to increase as of January 1st, something you approved during our budget. And the great thing about that is since we will have the highest substitute teacher rates in the city, we'll be able to get more substitutes. We have increased from about 700 to about 850. They are now going through an interview process at the same time, and then we are having associate superintendents and principals interview our applicants for substitute teachers because sometimes generally we don't want the seat to be kept hot, actually. We want the substitutes to teach the students while they're there and to make sure that they are involved. We are going to create an HR services at-a-glance manual, not only for our campus principals, but for all employees of the district. And we're looking at automating our onboarding and exit process to eliminate the amount of paper pencil that we have to do. That concludes my presentation, but I'm more than happy to answer any questions you might have.
Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
I had a question for you.
Sure.
I've been doing a lot of reading lately, and one of the interesting things I'm noticing is the differences when it comes to elementary versus middle versus high school. And middle school seems to be a challenge.
Right.
And you know, finding the right administrators. And by the way, you know, I think the district's doing a great job on our administrative level. At least in my learning community, well, I'm sure in all of learning communities, people just hired some real knockout people, some really incredible administrators. I'm really thrilled with that. But with middle school teachers, you know, they have so many different certifications, they have so many different qualifications, you know, different from 6th versus 7th and 8th. And middle school is such an important part of that student's development. They have to have the right teachers. How do we go about doing that? How do we go about selecting them? I mean, and I realize all things being equal, you know, certifications and experience and all those things like that, and then trusting our administrators to make good decisions as well. How do we go about selecting the best candidates to be good middle school teachers?
The way that teachers are generally hired is we have, of course, a competitive application process. Then we minimize the number of applicants based on their qualifications and what certifications they have. For middle school, there's 12 different certifications that could potentially be necessary at a middle school campus. Once we have the qualified list of applicants, the principal has set up a committee of their choosing. Generally, they work with the associate superintendent assigned to that grade level. And the committee interviews and selects 1, 2, or 3 individuals. They have a top candidate, a second candidate, and sometimes a third candidate. At that point, reference checks are conducted with their current supervisor. Now, let's say that their current supervisor is not on the reference list. We seek out their current supervisor because that could definitely be a red flag, and we don't want to have anyone that could potentially be an issue in the future. And then at that point, we do our criminal background check. We have noticed that coming out of UTEP, the quality of middle school teachers has declined significantly. So 3 members of Human Resources are now on a committee with UTEP's Department of Education so that we can work with the outpouring of middle school teachers to make sure that UTEP is giving us what we need in regards to our middle school teachers to make sure that they have the background necessary. So we're trying to work collaboratively with our university.
Okay, and that's interesting you bring that up because this recent article, whatever it was I read, they made the comment that there's very few middle school preparation programs in the country. So is UTEP doing something special right now, or are they just working with us on this?
That is something that we contacted UTEP and asked them if we could be on their committee for the teachers that are coming out, to make sure not only that they're certified, but to make sure that the program content that they're providing those teachers is what is the best practice for middle school teachers, elementary school teachers, high school teachers, depending on the level.
Okay, and I would just make one other comment. And
sure,
just
please do.
The academic side of it, I shouldn't say that's easy.
It's the social emotional
It's all
side.
the social emotional
I agree.
aspect of middle school, and where a lot of people run in a different direction when they think middle school. We should be running towards those kids.
It takes a
with
special
everything.
person
Yeah.
to work in a middle school because that's the grade level that the students are the most receptive, and they're at a very challenging part of their life. And you're right, we do need to make sure that our teachers are qualified to not only work with them academically, but socially and emotionally as well.
And whatever, I'm sure I can say this, but whatever you need from the trustees in this effort with UTEP and Dr. Kennedy, please let us know. We're very interested in.
You'll be hearing from us, I assure you of that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you. Also with us this evening, finally, Ms. Champagne is here. Should anyone have any questions or comments relative to her recent audit information that she provided the board? Pull your microphone down, make sure that the trustees can hear you.
Yeah, that was too short. Good evening, everybody. Any question?
Oh.
Yes.
No, go ahead.
No, I was asking if there's any question.
No, I've seen a lot of your audit reports, and they're very interesting, and I appreciate it. The only thing is that I don't know if the other trustees would like this, but when she says exceptions of items not found, could you give me a dollar amount? That way I can categorize it as to how much those items.
The value of the exceptions.
You mean on the audit items found?
Not found.
So for example, if a school fails to locate 6 iPads as part of an inventory, and each iPad is worth $700, then in the aggregate, $4,200
yes.
are missing, right?
Yes. We could do that. It's very easy. I can do that. You mean add it to the cover sheet?
Just put it in parentheses or something.
Right,
yes.
right. You mean on the first page, right?
Right.
Because in the attachment, each item is listed.
I know, but.
Right, so what you want is in the first page.
Right, I just want to
Okay,
look
yes,
at the
we can
first
do that.
page.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I
Yes,
would
I'll do that.
appreciate that, because that way I can look at it and, make an assessment as, okay, this item's, well, okay. But then some high-value items is like, okay, we need to look into this a little further.
Yeah. Those will be the original PO amount. It's not a current market value.
Well, yeah, those were the original amounts.
Yes, yes,
Yeah, I
yes.
mean, the valuation and everything else count into it, but.
That would be different than the 3 maintenance vehicles that we can't find.
I have not audited that department yet.
That was just for illustrative purposes.
Oh, I was looking at you.
We didn't get the BC on that.
Okay, yeah, but that's my only suggestion on that, to make it.
Sure, yes.
Okay.
I'll add it. Yeah, for the fixed assets, we have the dollar amount that we can add.
Yeah, just add it up and put it there in parentheses next to it. I would
Sure.
appreciate that. That way I don't have to search through the whole document. Thank you.
Yes, I will.
I had visited, for the trustees' information, I had visited with Champaign last week in reference to bond update and specifically to the Townsend and Associates.
Yes.
The report you sent out on Friday,
Yes.
it covered 99.9% of everything I had to, that I needed to look at. And so
Okay.
I didn't spend enough time today looking at it. I apologize. But I
problem.
will take a closer look and I'll be a little more informed the next time we visit.
Sure, anytime you want to go over the report, give me a call, come by and visit.
Yes, ma'am.
We'll
Thank
go
you.
over that.
Thank you
Yes.
very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Champagne.
Sure, thank you.
I think we'll call a 15-minute health break. Yes. at 7:56. We will now discuss agenda items as listed in the posted notice of the regular meeting of Ysleta Independent School District Board of Trustees for December 13, 2017, and related recommended motions with the superintendent and executive cabinet, and receive responses to questions and/or requests for additional information through the superintendent in preparation for deliberation and action on said items at the December 13th, 2017 regular Board of Trustees meeting. So we'll start with the consent items. Consent item number 1, Board of Trustees Workshop, November 6, 2017, 6 p.m. And it's the minutes. Okay. If we have any questions, just let me know. Number 2, Board of Trustees Special Meeting, November 6, 2017, 6:35 p.m. Number 3, monthly financial updates to include financial statements and bond project budget updates. Okay. Moving on to the policy action items. We'll start with number 1, policy CDA, other revenues, investments, revisions per TASB, policy services update 109. Policy number 2, CKC, local safety program / risk management emergency plans. Policy number 3, policy CNA, local transportation management, student transportation. Number 4, policy CO, local food services management. Number 5, policy DF, local new termination of employment. Number 6, policy DH, local employee standards of conduct.
I'd like to make a comment. I read the policy, and I think it's a really well done and necessary policy based on things that you all as a leadership have to deal with. I would just like to make one comment about, we teach a lot of dual credit courses in our schools. And one of the things that happen, and I say this as one of your dual credit partners, is that when I issue my syllabi, they get my college email, but they get my office number, but I'm never in the office, and I always put my cell phone number there. That's one example where I might do that. And since my program has dual credit in all the districts for all the ISDs here in the county, well, I'm sorry, 5 in the county, that's one issue. The other issue I have a concern about, and I use my wife as an example. She's a theater teacher, and they stay late many evenings, especially when in preparation for UIL and that sort of thing. To ensure transparency and good communication, she communicates with her parents and provides them the number. Well, the kids have the number, the students have her phone number, but her parents will, text her and say, Mrs. Ramirez is confirming that they indeed have practice till 7 o'clock tonight or whatever the time is. And that's just a way for the kids to know where they're at. I guess that's the only thing I'm kind of concerned about, is that we don't take anything away that allows for transparency or open communication.
In fact, what we do is we have a form in place that UIL teachers, athletic coaches, anyone that will need to communicate through text with students, they fill out the form, they designate which students they'll be contacting, and part of the policy is that it's okay as long as a parent and/or an administrator are copied on the text message to ensure transparency and appropriate behavior.
That's excellent. I was going to also mention that a lot of volunteer groups, specifically the Boy Scouts, we really emphasize 2 deep leadership on everything. So there's always at least 2 adults involved with everything that we do. So.
And we also recommend now to use the Remind app. It's like a text going to the phone, and so that way there's not the ability to respond. Of course, parents can through text, but it's just another safety net that we've put in place.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
May I say that the language in the policy is that An employee is not required to disclose his or her personal email address or personal phone number to a student. That doesn't mean you don't disclose it to a student's parent.
I understand. Like I
You
said,
might be able to do that.
but in the dual credit environment, that may actually happen.
Well, that's true with the kids. Okay, number 7, policy EJ, academic guidance program, and that's deleted. Number 8, policy FEA local attendance, compulsory attendance. Number 9, policy FFAA local wellness and health services physical examinations. Number 10, policy FFB student welfare crisis intervention deleted. Policy FFF local new student welfare student safety. Policy FF1 or I, student welfare, freedom from bullying revised. Okay, moving on to the action items. Number 1, appointment, reappointment of the El Paso Central Appraisal District EPCAD of directors. Okay, number 2, reimbursement resolution to reimburse the general fund for expenditures under the modification to energy savings performance agreement with ABM Building Services, LLC. Okay, number 3, approval of award of YISD solicitation number 218005 CSP Communications Cabling Network Electronics and Wireless Network E-rate year 2018. Okay. Number 4, approval of award of YISD cooperative requisition for purchase of Thomas Manor Elementary School furniture. And number 5, ratification of award of YISD contract number 201-60303, dual credit partnership agreement with El Paso Community College to provide dual credit courses.
I'd like to make a comment, and also I need to recuse myself for this vote. I understand the concept of what happened here. Mr. Pasuto and I have discussed this, and I mentioned Dr. Latorre as well. I would just make the comment, and I say this carefully, that if they missed the window, they missed the window, you know, and that was a discussion we had internally on the other side of the street about this. And so I appreciate the fact that the district is willing to be such a good partner, and I thank you and Dr. Latorre for the leadership on this, because I think I would feel differently about this. Thank you.
Okay, then we'll go into closed executive meeting to consider the litigation with Express Scripts, Texas Ethics Commission, number SC-31509-156, and the Texas Ethics Commission, number SC-31512-177. And then that leads us to announcements and adjournment. I just wanted to say, when we have down here at the bottom the tentative January items for you to look at, we're hoping that this will give you an opportunity to start formulating questions when you see these things, so that you might be able to get answers quicker, and so that the administration can provide more information than might even be available closer to the meeting. So, you know, take a look at those things and see if there's something that that you don't understand or that you'd like to hear more about, and contact Monica to get some answers. Mr. Ramirez, go ahead first.
I'd just like to make an observation, a comment. First off, Dr. Latore and team, I'd like to thank you for all your leadership last week. Our district had a rough week, and thanks for helping us navigate those waters and get us through it. I would like to also make a comment, and everyone who can hear this, is that we have lots of partners when we have these events. We work with law enforcement, we work with the health department, we work with a number of agencies, and we do this in the best interest of our students and our teachers and our administrators, and we do this in the best interest of the community. And sometimes things don't go our way as far as what we can say and what we can't say. And we have lots of laws. We have federal laws and state laws, and then we have local partners that we have to work with. And when we don't say anything, I realize that's hard for a lot of people because we've developed a reputation of transparency and openness and being very matter-of-fact about our problems. For those groups or those individuals out there who want to make hay out of this, who want to make an issue out of this, you're absolutely wrong on this. You can't do that, and you're trying to put the public and us in the middle and put kids in the middle in the process. You can't do that. Trust me, these trustees are committed to the safety and care of the students, the safety and of our teachers and our administrators. And I just want to make the comment that we're doing the best we can. Our administrators are doing the best they can, and we're making sure that the public is informed at all times. And so I just want to leave it like that because I know I'm going to get in trouble if I say anything else. So thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Woodruff, can I, very simple question. After I came back from TASB, I made some notes, and I was going to make a presentation, but that week I was not feeling well. And this has to be in regards to building relationships in this community. And I was just wondering, Dr. Latore, can you briefly give me an update? Whereabouts are you on that?
Probably not.
Probably not in this meeting.
Okay.
But we are
It's not
working
on the
closely with
agenda.
the association on the concept of community schools or increasing community involvement and engagement and partnerships and getting more people into our schools so that they know that we want and welcome their role, and their role is important.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Susan, if you can you use your mic, please? If this were a matter that were posted, for example, on Wednesday, the superintendent is going to make reports, and if it's part of his reports, you're welcome to discuss it.
I'm done.
So, would you like? So may I have a motion to adjourn?
Moved.
Mike?
No, you didn't.